Hello, I'm Thomas Finney. I'm an analyst here with Osprey Flight Solutions, and I'll be taking you through some of the latest incidents and events in our first weekly update of 2021. The year has begun in the shadow of familiar nationwide lockdowns and sweeping new entry restrictions that were introduced in December 2020 following the emergence of two new strains of COVID-19 that have been linked to increased viral transmission. The replacement of outright travel bans with new quarantine and testing requirements over the last week in Europe and Asia in particular has allowed a limited number of operations to resume in most contexts. However, flights to and from the United Kingdom, South Africa, and other countries where the variants are present remain heavily restricted. A few notable changes this week include new comprehensive PCR testing requirements for all international arrivals in Turkey, Canada, and Saudi Arabia. The changes to Turkish border control regulations are particularly momentous, as the country has typically taken a relaxed approach to COVID-19 screening in the past. It is then another indication of the seriousness with which national authorities in the Middle East and elsewhere are treating the emergence of these new strains. However, governments now face a delicate and all too familiar balancing act between protecting their populations from imported infections and maintaining air connectivity and its associated economic benefits. This week has also seen the launch of additional COVID-19 vaccination campaigns in several global regions. At the time of recording, Israel and Bahrain are leading the global race towards mass vaccination and population-level herd immunity, with the former vaccinating around 14% of its population. Meanwhile, the governments of France, Canada, and Spain have faced growing criticism for getting off to a comparatively slow start. In the case of France, only 516 jabs were administered nationwide in the first week of its rollout, whilst reports from medical centres in Canada have suggested that large numbers of doses are sitting in storage at distribution centres waiting for walk-in appointments. In almost all cases, governments continue to prioritise vulnerable populations, including frontline workers and the elderly, who are ultimately less likely to utilise air travel. It's therefore unlikely that the passenger aviation industry will see an immediate benefit from these initial inoculations, particularly as most vaccine candidates take around a month to become fully effective. In the last few days, we've issued our first dedicated alert on the distribution and sale of fake COVID-19 vaccines by a criminal organisation. The incident occurred in South African province of Gauteng, where 3 individuals were arrested for attempting to import several hundred doses of a product produced in China through OR Tambo Airport in order to sell it as a vaccine. In this case, the inoculations were incorrectly declared as cosmetic injections in order to avoid scrutiny at customs. These developments also follow the dissemination of an orange notice by Interpol in December, warning of this particular threat. It noted that around 3,000 websites were associated with online pharmacies suspected of selling fake medicines and medical devices have already been identified, many of which are based in Africa. The emergence of fraudulent vaccines is of course a serious concern for the aviation industry, from both a safety and security perspective, particularly if the jabs are offered alongside fraudulent certificates in order to prove their authenticity as a potential future travel requirement. Several concurrent events have also served to intensify heightened tensions between the United States and Iran this week, as key Senate elections, the certification of President-elect Joe Biden, and the anniversary of the assassination of IRGC commander Qasem Soleimani have coincided to form a potential flashpoint. This has manifested in an increased risk of strikes against US assets in Iraq, as well as the launch of military exercises in Iran itself. Meanwhile, air traffic control operators in New York reported a breach of ATC frequencies on the 5th of January when an unknown individual broadcast a threat to crash an aircraft into the US Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Although the threat has not been deemed credible, it is currently being investigated by FBI offices in New York and Washington. Several significant conflict zone developments have also occurred elsewhere amid this backdrop of increased tensions. On the 30th of December, a series of strikes was reported at Aden Airport in Yemen, leading to several fatalities. The concerted attack, which has been linked to the Houthi rebel forces by the newly formed Yemeni government, is also thought to have involved a planned strike on the presidential palace, which was intercepted by Saudi-led coalition assets. Meanwhile, a day earlier, Israeli Defense Force airstrikes launched from Lebanese airspace reportedly hit Assad regime targets linked to Iran and Hezbollah in the Syrian capital of Damascus. Both of these events are unlikely to have occurred in isolation, and operators should be aware that the security situation in these contexts may be subject to rapid change in the immediate future. And that's it for this week. Looking ahead to the next, the analyst team at Osprey will be covering the usual broad range of topics relating to travel restrictions, further conflict zone developments, as well as other dynamic security threats. So please sign up to our LinkedIn page to receive further updates and subscribe to our free Osprey Open platform to follow the latest data trends and utilize our newly added COVID-19 vaccination tracker. Thanks for watching.